Oh, I'm so excited because I have my dear, dear friend and our community engagement director, Michelle Jackson, joining a conversation today. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Jan. I am well, thank you.
It's
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I think that our conversation has such an important meaning and message to both of us at this particular time in life for different reasons. But our conversation today that I asked Michelle if she would basically do all the talking and just let me ask the questions because she knows much more about this than I do, is on, suicide prevention, suicide ideation. What do we do? How do we respond? How do we prevent if we can? I just have so many questions because this is something that has been brought even more to my attention this month, which is Suicide Prevention Month. Um, and so, because of some personal things that have been going on and just a few people in my life that I have that have had some ideation, I thought, let's have a really frank, honest conversation with Michelle, who has personal experience on all sides of this issue. I don't know if you call it an issue. What do you call it, Michelle? How do we say it?
I think it's more of an epidemic of sorts. And I don't know if we should just jump right in, but in 2022, the stats were over 49,000 souls, lives that we lost in America, just America, by way of suicide. And that's up about 2.6% over 2021. Of course, the stats are not in for 2023 as we're still currently in 2023. My hope and prayer is that we are not increasing the numbers, but hopefully, with talking and having these types of frank discussions, we can help to chip away at the stigma around mental health and suicide. So
Yeah,
I would call
I
it an
love that.
epidemic.
And I would call it an epidemic too. And I think most people, just like I always say, if you didn't, you know, if you weren't abused in some way, you know, you know somebody that was, and it's someone close to you. And I think this also touches almost every, family or certainly extended family in the whole nation and maybe around the world. Although I know there are certain places where those percentages and those numbers are much less per capita than here in the United States. Do you have any reasons why you think that might be?
Well, we have to look at our culture in the US. People look at us as the hub for freedom and for liberty and opportunities. However, being an American, and I've never been a resident of any other country, and being a Black American, surprise, I'm a Black woman. Um, taking into account the complexities surrounding race and sexual orientation and gender and opportunities. And I think in America, we're so rushed. There are many other countries that place mental health as a priority. And I think Americans are just waking up to that within the last maybe 15 to 20 years. It's almost like something happened through osmosis or some intentional event. And we finally decided, oh, wait, I'm focused on getting physically fit and my mental health is so out of whack. But Americans are always pushing and pursuing. And again, we're the land of opportunity. And being the land of opportunity, of course, there has to be drive behind that, right? A lot of the opportunities that Americans have, and I'm not speaking specifically to any race, ethnicity, or even gender, but a lot of our opportunities are because we work so much, right? So we
Right.
create new businesses. We're constantly creating and building and building and building. And do you hear the intensity in my voice as I build and I work and I work and I work and I'm not breathing and I'm not focused on my mental? And it's like, just move, just go, just pursue, just push, just push. And then you look around and you're having some sort of mental health crisis. You have anxiety. because you're pushing and you're going and you're moving and you're moving and you're not stopping to take an account of how is Michelle? And Michelle is so much more than her physical. Physical is great and that's awesome. But I think, you know, I don't want to get too deep and spiritual, but I believe in the Bible. And there's a scripture that says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And that scripture merely means however you think, that is your reality. So if your thoughts are not healthy, if your thoughts are not paced, if you're rushed and anxious, you'll feel that in your chest. You'll feel it in your stomach. You'll feel it in your shoulders. And now it's, of course, because it's in your thoughts. Now you're depressed. Now you're suffering. And I'm saying depressed because anyone can be depressed. It doesn't mean that you have a mental health disorder or condition. It doesn't mean that you have clinical depression. But with too much angst, too much movement, I talk about this thing called toxic movement because Americans often think the more I move, the more productive I am. But think about
And I
what's that hamster on the wheel?
Mhm.
He's moving a lot,
Right.
not gaining
Yet
any
he
ground though.
That's
Getting
right.
nowhere, just physically taxing himself out, and I think we do the same. So, Americans, we have to learn balance because in the plight to chase the dollar, we're losing our mental health and sometimes our physical health, it's suffering.
And I
That was a long
uh,
way to answer your question, I hope it did.
no, I oh, no, I thought that was a great answer, and I can see, those parallels between we're always trying to do more, be more, have more, get more, whether it's getting something done or it's having a better car or it's having more money to buy the whatever bling or the boat or the whatever. It's a lot of trying to get somewhere, but never being really centered and focused on where you are right now and finding joy and happiness kind of in maybe smaller things that maybe the numbers wouldn't be rising if we had a little more time on the farm. You know what I mean? Like how people used to live,
Mm.
where they had to care for other things, other living things. They had to care for their plants so they could eat. And it became a little more like in this present moment, instead of something that's out there that we're constantly being bombarded with, like we see that somebody has more. And it somehow means we are less. And that's where I think that constant hamster wheel comes. So it is that materialism, I think, that does have a huge part to play in, whether it's you think, there's some new thing you can try and that's the get rich quick thing, or that's the thing that's going to make me happy. Whereas really joy comes from somewhere much deeper inside from it's underneath something that maybe has layered itself on, and I often talk about abuse, as we know, that's my focus, and grooming, and the things that get in the way of being able to experience joy and having to deal with trauma. And I know for you personally, you experienced a tremendous amount of trauma. You've been on the podcast before. It's basically how we met and started to become friends. And now that you are the community engagement director for Thrivivors, our online community, as I've gotten to know you more and more, and you do public speaking, and you know everything, in my opinion, you know everything about this subject. And I know you're shaking your head like, no, I don't. But you know a lot because you've had personal experience. And I don't know what you'd like to share on this that pertains to this conversation, but certainly I would love to hear from your perspective out of the abuses, the multitude of abuses that you suffered through as a young girl from age 6 to many years later, how that
So
affected your mental health.
so yes, sexually, sexual abuse started at 9, but here's the thing, when I talked about Americans and why I think the numbers are greater, I resisted saying capitalism, right? Because we also benefit from capitalism in so many ways. So then you add on being an American, you add on being a Black woman, even though statistically speaking, um, the number one victim of suicide and suicide attempts is white males. Okay. And to me, that speaks back to the capitalistic perspective of this country, right? That's why they're leading in the numbers generally. However, it affects all nationalities, all races, genders. It doesn't discriminate. And for me being I call myself a three-time loser, and it's really about perspective. I'm smiling as I say that because I've changed my mind about some things. I used to look at it as if, there's so much stigma surrounding all 3 things that I suffered from the most in my life. And those 3 things were, child sexual abuse by an uncle, molestation, and actual rape and sexual abuse by my father, and both are biological uncle and father. And then I suffered from depression, clinical depression, not just, there's a slogan that says depression is more than just sad because everyone will be sad. And that's another thing. We have to normalize our feelings, right? We have to normalize the gamut of all of our feelings. No one will be happy every day and have peace and joy every day. It's impossible and it's okay. It's part of the human dynamic and the human experience. So normalizing, man, I'm a little blue today, and that's okay. It's okay as long as you're not saying the same thing 6 months down the line every day. I'm a little blue for 6 months every day. That's probably a little more than just blue. That's probably
Right.
it's probably beyond time that you call a therapist or seek help, go to the hospital, do something more. Um, if you're giving away your belongings and, the things that you love, all of a sudden, if you're fixated on death, yeah, it's probably more than just sad. So I just want to get that out there right up front. If you are struggling, please seek help. 988, call 988 for some resources and some help and to speak with someone, or 800-273-8255. That's a longer way to call it, but it's basically the same thing. Or reach out to your support system. Be honest. I think in addition to, capitalism and all the rush, 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 also in America, and I think this is worldwide. This is not an American problem. It is a worldwide problem because there is so much stigma attached. I said I was a three-time loser. So we have child sexual abuse, we have depression, and then we have suicide attempts. I attempted 3 times, and on the 4th time, I call it a suicide completion or execution because I physically flatlined for a few minutes. And as common as, suicide is and mental health issues or conditions, depression included, anxiety included, very common things, yet we don't want to talk about it. We're getting better now, but it's this hush hush, deep, dark secret. And then suicide ideation, many people, I think if any of your viewers, your audience were to really have a candid conversation with their community, I'm sure they'd be startled by how many people have thought about ending it all. Yet, we don't want to talk about it. So for me, adding on, the complexities of who I show up in this country as every day, which is enough, and then you add on child sexual abuse and the trauma and being born to a teenage mom who was 16 when she gave birth and, poverty because I didn't feel poor, but we were extremely poor. Um, then you have her being a victim of sexual abuse, me being a product of rape, not feeling loved, all of these factors. Anytime I share, and often I will share on NAMI's platform, NAMI is National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I help to share my lived experience with Chicago police officers. Often when I wrap up my lived experience, they ask the question, well, do you think your issues came from nature or nurture? And my response is always the same, both. I wasn't nurtured by my mother. I wasn't validated and supported and seen by my mother. And then mental health conditions kind of trickled through my family bloodline. So you have the nature and the nurture part. It is something that we desperately need to discuss openly. We need to be able to ask someone, how are you? And actually wait for the answer. Again, going back to the rush and the hustle and bustle, we ask each other, how are you? And we don't stick around for the answer because we're so busy. right?
Or we give that very quick answer, "Oh, I'm fine." And our sound engineer just informed me what that actually means. So from the booth, Eric said that he learned this in NA, a meeting, that FINE stands for insecure, emotional, neurotic and emotional. Okay, that's what fine means. I like that definition of fine because usually when somebody says it, I got it this morning at my dentist appointment. I went to the dentist and he comes in the room and the sweet thing is the gal that was there before, the assistant who was she and I have gotten to be friends and we have some similar lived experiences and she happened to ask me how I was doing and I was like, "Oh, I'm okay." And then she goes, "Oh, that's not okay." That's the first thing she said. "Oh, that's not okay." And then I started to cry just because she took a pause. And then I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just having some hard times in my personal life." And I'm just, and I kind of went into some of it with her and it's hard. It's hard to talk about how you really are because most of the time you don't really feel like anybody's listening. Like they really do want you to just say, "Oh, I'm just fine. How are you?"
Absolutely. Absolutely. And often we suffer in silence, as I'm sure everyone's heard that terminology. We suffer in silence because of that. We feel either people really don't want to know, they really don't care, or I'm going to make them uncomfortable. Yeah. I spoke at an event. It was a suicide awareness and prevention event this week, as you know, Jan. And I shared some things in the room, and there were so many individuals. I asked a question about, you know, eh, can anyone in here, who in here has lost someone to suicide? And over half the room raised their hands. And my heart broke, even though I know this is true, even though I know 49,449, don't quote me on the number, souls lost their lives to suicide last year. I know the numbers are too large, they're too vast. However, to see it in one room, my heart broke and I challenged them to be the voice of their loved ones. Now, that doesn't mean that you pick up a mantle that doesn't belong to you and now you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. No, what it means is you can challenge yourself to be on this journey to help save a life by merely listening. We're so busy when we think of communicating and we think of everyone has a mic and everyone has a camera and everyone wants their voices heard. However, the greatest form of communication to this girl is listening. Because when I can make space for a person, I validate their purpose, their value, their voice.
Yeah.
I validate
And you
in them
you validate their experience too.
that's what I was going to say. I validate
Yeah.
their experience and I validate the fact that they mean something to me. Their lives matter to me in that moment. So I know we're on a podcast and it would be really awkward if we were just sitting here breathing, right? Just in silence. But as we or
Right.
and because I'm the yes and queen, yes, that would be awkward. And also, Jan is listening as I'm speaking. And when she speaks, even if there's a, combustible moment where we're both speaking at the same time, I pull back and I listen and I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say? Letting her know that her opinion matters, her thoughts matter, her voice matters, her her existence matters. I think we have to get back when Jan was referring to taking care of animals and plants, all these other living organisms and beings and all these things. The fact that we can connect to life again. I think we're disconnected as people. I think we're disconnected from life. We're disconnected from our loved ones. And inevitably, we're disconnected from our own emotional being, our own emotional posture. How am I today? When we wake up, we're so rushed. We have so many things on our schedule and on our calendar. And I don't want to diminish mental health issues or conditions with the everyday hustle and bustle of life. But you add that on to a person already diagnosed with anxiety. You add the regular life challenges and struggles and schedules and appointments. You add that on to a person already dealing with major depressive disorder. And what do you get? And then you add on the fact that there is so much stigma surrounding suicide and suicide ideation because I hate this. It is this connotation that if a person is dealing with suicide ideation, that they're weak. Oh, you just want a way out. I used to hear people say, and I still hear it, and sometimes it offends me. Other days, if you catch me on a good day, it doesn't bother me. But I used to hear people say when they talk about individuals dying by suicide, oh, they just wanted the pain to end. They just wanted the pain to stop. Now, because this is such a varied topic, it's such a nuanced, that's the word I was searching for. It's such a nuanced topic, and every person can have different roots and issues and the core issue of why they're thinking of suicide. However, not every person who dies by suicide or attempts merely wants the pain to stop. I'll speak for Michelle. I didn't just want the pain to stop. Do you know why? I didn't just want the pain to stop because I had zero hope. I had no hope in me to think that the pain would ever stop. So how can I fathom something that I can't hope for? How can I dream of that when there's nothing in me saying that it is possible? I had zero hope. So I didn't want the pain to stop because I didn't think it ever would. I want it to no longer exist because there was no hope in me that said my brain pain would ever end. What do I mean by brain pain? The tormenting, constant, negative narrative and chatter in my head 24/7. And it wasn't conditional. It wasn't if things were good. Things were good, and I still attempted suicide. The external, outward things, and this speaks to what Jan referenced before, earlier. She talked about that inner joy because it comes from the inside. You'll know who I am on the outside because of what's poured into me on the inside. I'm only displaying and showing and sharing anything that lives on the inside of me. That's all I'm doing now. My own personal experience. I'm not an expert in the sense of being a licensed clinical professional, but I'm an expert on Michelle's life. I'm an expert on the trauma I've experienced and how it affected me. I'm an expert on being hopeless. I'm an expert on feeling isolated and alone because for me, there was no hope. There were no people, even though I had friends who cared. There was no open space for me to say, if you ask me, how are you? There was no space for me to say, I'm not doing so well today. I think I want to die. There was no space for me to say that because, oh my gosh, how are they going to respond? Oh my gosh, will I be locked in a rubber room? I'm of a certain age, so we know the white rooms, right? With
Well, yeah,
what was the jacket called?
the straitjacket.
The straight jacket. We're aware. So that was a fear like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be further isolated in a room with white padded walls and a straight jacket." No, there's nothing truly wrong with me. Yes, I have a health condition, a mental health condition, but don't throw me away. Don't discard me. Would you discard someone who has cancer? That's a physical health condition. Well, what's the difference? Because when last I checked, if a person was brain dead, they're dead, right? And your brain, your mind, all of that's in the same place. So, physically, we are no longer existent if our minds are not existing in a healthy, fruitful life kind of way. So, why is it that we deal with the physical so much more than we do our mind health, our brain health, our thought life, our thought health?
Well,
So, for me, I was feeling alone, isolated, had no one, all these things, even though there were people around me. And then you add on the trauma, sexual trauma, and that does so many things to you, even if you don't have a mental health condition. So I'm alone. I'm struggling with this thing by myself. I bring in God and all that, but I'm not understanding. Yes, I can believe and I can have faith and I can pray and I can do all the things, but there's work to do. I have to do work. I have to change my thought pattern. I have to tell my mind how to think. I have to tell my mind how to think and what to think. And if I sit up all day meditating focused on one thing. That becomes eventually over time, that becomes my belief system. So if I'm always thinking life's never going to get better, and it's just on a repeat, oh, my life sucks. Oh, my life's awful. Nobody loves me. I'm so by myself. I'm so alone. They don't understand me. And I just meditate on this. And this is the record that I play 24/7. Guess what my belief system is going to say? It's going to say, I don't have value. I'm in the world by myself. No one loves me. I should just end it all. I don't matter. Until,
You had that
mhm,
thought pattern going.
mhm.
You now know that this is going. I do you know, is there a way to step back and know that that's what's happening so that you can, if I see somebody in that thought pattern, what do I do if I don't want them to feel that way? And then what do you do when you're the person that has that thought pattern and you don't even know you're having it because to you it's just like I don't want to live now. I mean, what do you do?
So it depends, right? For me, I can't remember a time as I think back in my childhood because it was so traumatic and dysfunctional. I don't remember a time where I ever felt normal or that I belonged. I was in a family, people had a lot of beliefs and patterns and habits and personality traits, and I didn't fit in. I always pulled back like, what's wrong with these people? Wait a minute, what's wrong with me? They're all okay. It's like they're having a great time, and I see it as dysfunction. And I was a little girl. I was very tiny. I walked around protecting my younger cousins, and I was a child myself because I knew something was wrong in the atmosphere in the individuals and the place that I was raised in. So I always felt different, always felt like something was wrong, always had sleep deprivation issues, always. I never recall being able to have peace in my sleep and either go to bed at a reasonable hour and or stay asleep for the full night. Never known that. So that's a little different, right? And that if you have a child like that, if you have a child, and as a parent, if you're an engaged, plugged in parent, you can tell, you can see it. Now it's your responsibility because you are responsible for that underage child to pour into that child and make space for them and listen to them and give them space. Even if they want to sit for an hour with you in the room and say nothing, give them the space to do that. Let them know you're there whenever they're ready to talk. And don't try to fix them. If a child is feeling like everything they say you want to fix and correct, what message is that sending to them? That is sending to this child who's already struggling in their mind. That's sending the message that there's something wrong with them. You don't fix things that are not wrong, but you do fix things when they are wrong, when they're broken. So you are communicating to this child, you're broken, so I have to fix you. So now they're already struggling. They're already trying to figure this thing out, what's going on. I know there's pain in my brain. I know there's something going on because we recognize it. It's not like I didn't recognize it. I don't know anyone who's suffered severely from depression, clinical depression, who didn't realize, oh, no, 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 something's off, something's wrong. Even a child. They know when they're
Yeah, they may
thinking,
not have the word, but
they
they
may
know
not have the
something.
words. They
They don't
know.
have the words. You weren't going, "Oh, I have mental health problems," when you were, 9 years old, but you knew
But
something was wrong.
you identify it as I feel different. A child can say, something's wrong. I don't feel like everybody else. I'm different. They can use those words. They know how to articulate that. And we have to listen as parents. We have to listen as part of their communities and make space. I keep saying that and I will continue to say it. Create space for individuals to be and to figure it out. And I'm talking about children here. Now, because the child is not responsible for themselves, the parent is, right? Now, we've talked about the child and how to make space. And then once you start to see these things, educate yourself. You seek help as the parent. Get some resources. Speak to a therapist. If you can't afford a therapist, because I get it, I understand. There are too many hotlines. You can even call 988. I don't know. I'm not sure about my child, but can you direct me? Can you show me where to go? We have these things. We have these phones. Pick up your phone. Type it in. Having problems with I think my child has a mental health condition. Type the words. It doesn't have to be detailed. Google will find everything. Search engines are incredible. You can find free resources. So
Right.
get support, find some resources. That's for the child. For the teenager, and we know, okay, the child's brain is developing. Now we have puberty, we have all these other things. And often with puberty, because the hormones are shifting and changing, and they may have already had some kind of marker for mental health conditions, that puberty might push them right into it, right? There are certain mental health conditions that show up when a child is in college. And before that, they may have seemed fine, right? No issues, no complications. And then they go away to school, and you're like, what? I got a call that my child is running through the campus naked? What is going on? I've heard so many cases of individuals who schizophrenia shows up, all these different types of conditions, mental health conditions. So if that is your child at a certain age, there's a certain age of accountability where at some point we have to start owning our own choices. But with mental health conditions, your choice and the ownership, it's like a filter that's dirty. You have the filter there that can help you to see clearer, but if there's debris all over it, you can't see. So now you need the community, you need your parents, you need people that will advocate for you. And sometime, and this is difficult, sometimes for a teenage child, we need to reach out to other people, and may need them to be screened. They may go kicking and screaming, but they may need to see a professional, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. They might need medication. They might.
Right.
But I would step out on a limb here and say, do the work as the parent, and no parent is perfect. We're going to miss things. We're going to miss things in our own lives. Do the work. Do not let medication be your first stop, okay? Do the work, get a second opinion. And then when you realize, okay, this is true, they really need this medication, they really need this antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, whatever the medication is, they really need it. Now you're there partnering with your child and you communicate with your child. You share how afraid you are. You share that with them. You show up as an honest person, not just as their parent. I love you. I'm afraid for you. I want your brain pain to stop. I want to support you. I am here for you. What's going on in your head? What are you thinking? And listen. Listen for the answer. And if you think your child is thinking of suicide, be direct, be honest, ask the question. Are you thinking about ending your life? Are you thinking about suicide? Do you have a plan? And that will show you the severity or the dire need that's there, that exists, so that you know your next steps. If the child is an adult child, Jan, I have a 30-year-old. If you have an adult child and they're showing signs of severe depression, major depression, and thoughts of suicide, here's where it gets really tricky. As adults, we are responsible for and accountable to our own lives. We're accountable to ourselves. I was 30 when I attempted to die by suicide the last time. I was 30 years old with a 9-year-old daughter. And the narrative in my brain pain, convinced me that she would be better off without me. I called one of my friends and she could hear it in my voice. I didn't tell her what I'd done. She asked me, was I okay? She didn't know the questions to ask. Because honestly, in that time, if she said, Michelle, are you having thoughts of suicide? I probably would have answered her in an honest way. But she just kept saying, are you okay? What have you done? Nothing, nothing. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. And here's the tricky part. She called the police, and the police were dispatched to the apartment I was in. That it was my mother's apartment. I attempted. I thought this time, surely I'm no longer going to exist. Surely. this is a guaranteed out. I was an adult. Yes, I dealt with what we would call major depressive disorder today. It was severe clinical chronic depression at that time. But yes, I dealt with major depressive disorder. And yes, and I still made the decision. That's tough. That's tough as I'm standing, and I shared with you, I spoke at this event. I'm standing in this room with survivors of, individuals who've died by suicide, and they have the guilt. So I took them through an exercise where they would release the guilt. And it was short, just something I wanted them to say, to let them know, standing before you on this podcast right now, you're watching a person who I'm only here by God's grace. Literally, I'm only here because of that. I'm only here because these police officers sat and watched me and didn't leave me, even though I lied and said I was fine. I'm only here because they waited until I lost consciousness. And then they, put me in the ambulance. They called the ambulance and all those things. And I was unconscious then, the full ride. I'm only alive because those doctors did mouth to mouth and the EMTs, they did mouth to mouth and chest compressions. And then at the hospital, they used a defibrillator on me several times and the doctors wouldn't give up on me. I'm only here because God said, no, she's not finished yet. Yes, she has to speak about this. Yes, she has to give people hope. Yes, she has to learn that she's not a mistake, that her life actually matters. She has value, and this brain pain won't always exist. So when she learns to get rid of the brain pain, that she can help others navigate their way through healing. They can start their journey. They can find some hope. I am only here not because of Michelle. Michelle did not want to be here. So when we talk about adults making decisions, yes, even with mental health conditions, it's tricky because at the end of the day, you can do everything you wanted to do, everything you needed to do, everything you thought to do, everything you prayed to do, and yet this person can still die by suicide. And that's horrible. And I hate saying it. I hate that it's a reality. And until we make it safe, make it comfortable for people to be honest, give resources, listen, talk does save lives. Keep talking, stay in the person's face, keep listening, keep fighting with them, not for them, because no one could fight for my life except me, with them. It has to be a partnership. And that doesn't mean you put your life on hold. It doesn't mean okay, now I have to walk this person through every single step. There is a level and a measure of accountability. I still had to do the work. After that last suicide attempt, you heard me say my last suicide attempt. That is how I've trained my mouth to speak about it. I will not attempt suicide again. That is my confession. That is my decree. And my work supports it. The work that I've done on myself, the regular work that I do every day. There's management and maintenance that I have to do on my mind every day. When those thoughts that don't belong to me, some of the thoughts I had, they came because of trauma, because of perpetrators, because of my environment, because nature around me, or the lack of nurture. These were not my thoughts. They invaded into my mental space, and as long as I allowed them to sit there and dine with me every day, I just went deeper and deeper into the darkness. Until finally, after the last suicide attempt, it will be 21 years ago, on October 22nd of this year. It will be 21 years that I last attempted suicide. I call it my death to life experience because I had to even reshape how I view that. Instead of just, yeah, last time I tried to, no, no, no. That was my death to life experience. That was my rebirth. Horrible that it had to go that way, but that's just part of my story. I'm here now ripping the covers off of suicide and depression and mental health conditions. It is nothing to be ashamed of. You do not have to succumb to suicide. No one does. It is not the only way. It is not an inevitable journey. It is something that we can still decide. When I realize the power of my decision, if I could decide to die by suicide, guess what? I could also decide to live, not just exist, but live. So then I had to figure out, how do you live? How do you live when you have depression? How do you live when you literally want to stop existing? How? Well, for me, there were several ways, several things. First and foremost, Michelle had to open her mouth. She had to stop lying to herself and others about the struggle, about how much pain she was in, even if it made people uncomfortable. Because if you ask me
Amen,
today,
sister.
if you ask me, did you say amen, sister?
I did because honestly, that really is like at the core of every trauma that I can think of. It's hiding it. It's not talking about it that makes it continue to, do its little, little what do you call those things? Those little worms that get inside your gut or what,
Yeah,
it continues to just do that. It doesn't go away because you don't talk about it. You
it
might be
grows.
one of those people that can shove it aside and just press it down and try to put on a different face for years and years and years and years, but it feels to me like almost every trauma that I have ever been, tried to learn about, tried to understand, my own trauma that I've tried to handle and heal from in different ways at different times and different stages of my life. It's the talking through it. It's the telling someone that believes you and isn't trying to fix you, which is really the core of our Thrivivors group. I mean, it really is. Be believed. That's our thing. Be believed, be seen and heard. So you have a safe place to talk and tell and not be judged nor fixed, just to have your truth expressed. And that to me is what you're saying. So how if you were now that, we're both in our are older, you're more middle age. I'm getting really old. But anyway, but if I were to look back and if I were to be able to say, okay, if I could have done it perfectly as a parent, because we want to do better because we realize, oh, we had trauma, we passed some of that on, we didn't know what we know now, then what age would you start talking to your child about these words, suicide, mental health, depression, anxiety, all the words that we've said today? Would you would you explain them and express them at a certain age or in a certain order, or do you have to wait for them to ask you something? Because that's what we used to be told. Oh, well, you don't need to talk to your kids until they ask about sex. And I'm like, well, that'll be way
That's too late.
pretty positive. Yeah.
That's way too late. So here's the thing. Again, the nuance, right, of different people, everything's subjective. Every child, you can have 5 children, and all 5 of those children will need different things from you. And you will need to be a different type of parent to all 5 of those children, right? So here's the thing. There is no blueprint on, well, at this age, you're going to introduce this. What I would say is based on your child, and every parent should know their child's personality. My daughter, I didn't talk to her per se about suicide. I had to talk to her about it after my last attempt because she was pulled out of school and someone told her, your mom tried to KILL herself. I hate saying that. That's why I just spelled it out. And of course, that completely traumatized her, 100%. So, but I did start speaking with her about her body at a very young age. She was probably 2. And she was very vocal. She could articulate extremely well. She was very expressive. So she understood certain conversations about her body. So that's when we're talking about sexual abuse and trauma. And that's how I help to protect her from ever being a victim of child sexual abuse, right? So
Right.
when your child is ready and you know the maturity level of your child, you start to introduce the suicide term. But here's the thing, before you start saying suicide or death or any of those terms, you should already be asking your children from a very young age, as early as possible, how does your brain feel? Mommy, where's my
Mhm.
brain? It's in your head. You know how when you have a headache and you feel that pressure, do you feel anything in your head? What's in your head? What's in your thoughts? Oh, mommy, I'm thinking about school yesterday. I went to, my friend Susie, she said this and she said that. Or, yeah, something bad happened at school yesterday. And that starts the conversation. And you can go deeper and deeper by listening. Susie wouldn't play with me yesterday. Then Susie talked about me to Mandy, and then Latasha was talking about me, and Mommy, I felt so bad. Why don't they like me, Mommy? Why don't they like me? Oh, wait. My child is dealing with isolation. Well, okay, little Michelle, have you ever felt this way before? Have you ever felt like people didn't like you before? Where? Yeah, even at home, mommy. You can keep digging, asking the questions instead of always trying to show up with the answers. No, keep digging. And you can get to the bottom of wait, is there some mental challenge going on here? Is there a complication? Is there bullying? Is there a real condition? Or is this just regular everyday life? Because no one's going to like you everywhere, right? So is this just the normal stuff? But you won't know if you don't ask the questions. So asking your child at a very early age, how does your brain feel? How are your thoughts? Are your thoughts hurting you? Are you happy? What makes you happy? Are you sad? Why are you sad? Can you tell me more about that? Say more and listen and don't interrupt. Give them space. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Can you make a promise that every time this happens, you'll tell mommy, we're going to do something about that? What would you like to do about it? What do you need mommy to do for you? How do you need me to help you? They don't like you, but you're an amazing person. So, what can we do so that you feel good even if they don't like you? Digging. And what you're doing is learning to expose yourself and the child to good communication, to feeling seen, heard, believed, like Thrivivors, right? Because
Yeah.
if the child is telling you Susie didn't talk to them, you're not saying, no, I'm sure Susie likes you. I'm sure Susie thinks you're great. It couldn't have been that. What do we do when we do that to the child? And parents do it all the time. They don't mean any harm, right? But you dismiss your child all the time. No, it couldn't be that bad, right?
They don't know anything. Instead of they know everything. They know how they feel. They know what their perception is. The only way you can know what their perception is by to listen. You can't be telling them something different than what they've perceived, even if you were to look at the situation and go, "Oh, I was watching from, a bird's eye view, and
Mhm.
when she gave the jump rope over here on that end of the jump rope to a different girl and not to you, boy, that doesn't mean she doesn't like you." But to your kid, it doesn't matter why she's not the person that you handed the other end of the jump rope to and the person jumping the rope, you know, cut in line or what. You have to listen to their perception of the world because that is their reality. It's all of our reality.
Yes, it is. And even though I said I'm the expert of my own experience, your 5-year-old is the expert of their experience. Even though they may not know how to articulate it clearly, they are the expert. They know if everywhere they go, they feel alone and isolated and alienated, like I was as a child because I went to 6 different grammar schools and I was always being uprooted. Okay, I finally make a friend and now it's time to move. Okay, I finally make a friend. Oh, now it's time to move. Until Michelle learned, oh, wait a minute, I can't depend on stability. I can't count on that. I can't count on anyone really understanding me or embracing me because I'm always a new girl in these environments where they have their friend groups. Oh, Michelle has to isolate. Michelle has to learn to be okay by herself. And it starts to create a narrative and this story that I'm telling myself. Now, if I had a mother who was saying, how does this feel? How does moving again feel to you? At least I would have the security there knowing that I'm seen, I'm believed, I'm heard. I have space. Someone loves me. Someone cares about me. Someone is happy to see me. But I didn't have that either. So that combined with trauma, combined with sexual abuse, all these things, it's like, oh, my existence means nothing. But if you take the time, if you make the time, if you invest and looking at it as an investment as opposed to, oh, I'm giving something of myself and it's so depleting and hurt. Oh, no, no. As a child, if you start with them as a child and listen, ask the questions, allow the expert, your 5-year-old little expert, to clue you in on how their brain is functioning, how their experience, how they're looking at the world, because you can tell a lot from listening to a child. So as they get older, you're still making space. And yes, parenting is hard. We know, Jan girl. Yeah. We know parenting is rough. It is tough. It's not rewarding at times. It's all the things. Yes, Anne. It's not over. Both of our children are still alive, right? So it
Yeah.
can change, it can shift all these things. I think when we learn our own value and as parents, we release the guilt. That was one of the conversations I think I referenced it earlier at the event that I spoke at this week. Release yourself. If you did everything you could do and they still died by suicide, you did everything you could do. They made the choice. I'm so sorry. That's horrible. Release yourself because what is the benefit of carrying the guilt? Are you honoring that loved one by walking in the guilt? Are you honoring yourself? Because, see, even as I say that, it shows you, it gives you insight to even how my brain functions, right? I said, are you honoring the loved one who died by suicide? I really should have said, are you honoring yourself? Because at the end of the day, whether we have a mental health condition or not, or we have life's challenges, or we're scared, or whatever we are, it is our responsibility to make ourselves a priority first. If I show up as a whole being, then I'm more capable and better able to help you. But if there are bits and pieces of me all over the world and my brain's over here, my body's over there, my spirit's here, my soul, what good am I to you? How can I really help you get the tools you need if I don't have tools that I'm exercising and using myself? So I started before, and I don't want this to end before I say this. My first step to understanding my power, my first step for retraining my brain, for retraining my thoughts, for telling my mind how to think, because my mind was lying to me based on nurture, nature, experience, trauma, all the things, school experiences, the moving, the this, the that, all of these experiences. So I had to retrain my brain. I had to retrain my thoughts. So first, I had to start because you cannot change your mind about something that you are lying about. If you are not confronting it, if you are not accepting it, if you are not forgiving or whatever you need to do, you cannot really make progress or gain any ground. So first, I had to be honest about what I was going through and how I felt about it, what happened to me, all the things. Then after that, I had to figure out, Michelle, okay, how can you start talking to yourself in a healthy way when all you've allowed is the thoughts of negativity to lead and guide you? For me, it was the Bible, learning scriptures. What does God say about me? Because I didn't have people other than my friends, okay? I don't want to discount them, but I didn't have relatives who were there supporting and pouring good things into me. So I didn't have that and all the other stuff. So now I need a new source. Okay, fine. Who am I? Great. I am the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. I can do all things through Christ. All the things, right? God created me in his image and his likeness. He couldn't do that if I'm horrible, if I don't have any value, if my life doesn't matter. My life does matter. I have purpose. And that's another segue. I have to make this. I've heard someone say, and this was an expert who said it. I heard an expert say that people die by suicide when they don't feel like they have a purpose. That's a lie. That can be one of the reasons that a person dies by suicide, but that is not the overall, end all, be all reason. Because if that were the case, we've seen individuals, what's her name? Chelsea, the beauty pageant winner. She had major purpose. She had all these things coming up. There are people who are actively working. Regina King's son, amazing young man, died by suicide a few years ago. People who have wonderful careers, white men who are, in the Fortune 200, 150 companies who die by suicide. Police officers, overwhelming numbers of suicide, okay? People can have purpose and still die by suicide. It's not having the purpose. It is how you are perceiving it. Do you have hope? That's literally because if I have hope that things are gonna get better, if I have hope that I have some power over this brain pain, then I can hang in there one more day. I can do the work. I will be motivated to do it. If I am hopeless, I won't. I don't care what I have. I could be the president of the United States. If I don't have hope and if I don't have faith, if I don't know that I'm valuable and I'm worthy, then all the purpose in the world, the best job in the world, the most money, the most beautiful, the most prestigious, all the things, and I can still die by suicide. So it's not just about having a purpose. Because if that were the case, then the only people who would die by suicide would be unemployed people with nothing, right? And we know that's not the case. That's not the truth. So going back, I had to say that because that really it affected me. Like this is not accurate information here. Yes, that can be one person, but that's not the overall summation of where that comes from. So I had to figure out how to start retraining my brain. So for me, it is audibly speaking. I literally talk to myself. When thoughts come and racing thoughts happen, even today, even with all the work I've put in, and I will capture those thoughts and I will say, you know what? Wait, why am I sitting here feeling insecure? Michelle, you are amazing. Remind yourself of all the things you've gone through and overcome. I have to take my own mind down a journey of, girl, the things you have overcome, you are incredible. What are you doing? That's not even a true thought. That is not true. I talk to Michelle.
And you
Additionally,
talk out loud?
I talk out
Talk out
loud
loud?
audibly. I hear my own
Audibly?
voice. My own voice.
So you're separating the truth from the lies, and you're
Absolutely.
talking out loud to yourself. Okay, doing the work. That's a part of doing the work. Okay,
And that is
I
work
love it.
that as much as you love me, Jan can't do that work for me.
Oh, no.
Our audio engineer is in here. I love Eric. He can't do that to me or for me. Karen is in the background. Karen loves me. I love her. She can't do the work for me. My husband, I am married. He can't do that for me. This girl right here has to do the work. I have to capture the thought because anytime we allow a thought to keep repeating, it becomes our belief system. And if you believe a thing, it becomes your reality. If you believe you're nothing, you have no value and you will end up ending it or doing something destructive. Maybe you don't end it with dying by suicide. Maybe you destroy your life. Maybe you destroy relationships because it's the way you believe. It's what you think about you. So if my thoughts that I have identified, that is not my thought. That doesn't belong to me. Oh, that's my father who raped me. Oh, I know that thought. Wait a minute. I'm going to speak back to you. No, I'm not an afraid, frightened little child anymore. I am capable. I am able. I am healing. I won't say healed, but healing. I'm in that process. I'm in that journey. I love my life. I want to live. And at first, when I started saying I want to live and I have purpose and I have value and I have hope, I didn't believe it. I thought I was lying because I was so accustomed to listening and following that negative narrative that I didn't believe it until eventually, over time, saying it all the time. Over time, oh, I know it's the truth now. I still have insecurities just like anyone else. Every person on this earth has something they're insecure about. But Michelle is an amazing being. Okay? I'm a pretty awesome person.
I
I'm
call
not
you
saying that
miracle. That's what I call you.
you
I
do.
call you a walking miracle.
You do.
I
But
mean,
that may sound arrogant. But then I want the listeners and the viewers to think about that. Why does it sound arrogant? Why, if someone in a room with you said, I'm awesome. I like me. I like you too. And I like me. Why would that turn you off? We have been so conditioned to this false humility. Someone gives you a compliment. Oh, no, 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 no. No, not me. You. No, no, no. Yes, me. Yes, me. Yes, me and you. We can all be great. We can all be amazing. Because if
absolutely.
I don't believe it, guess what? I'm going to show up like I don't believe it. I'm going to destroy things like a bull in an antique shop, crashing into everything around me, breaking everything, including myself. No, change your mind about who you are. Only you can do that. And you do that through talking to yourself. I do other things. I journal. That's another way of communicating with yourself and getting those thoughts out. I'm honest. I started there. I'm honest. So don't ask me how I am doing because I will tell you. I'm having a rough day. It's a rough day. I am struggling. Okay. And you might not want to hear it.
Through it.
Like,
Yeah,
seriously.
and things like that really truly are I mean, that may sound so simple, but but to do the work of that is to do the work of that, which is to talk out loud, audible. I do very similar things with myself. I've done it in the mirror. I've done work through therapists that have suggested certain things and certain things that I just do when I'm just trying to sort it out, you know?
Mhm.
I love that, you journal, you write something, just to free form, and write and to re-narrate something, like maybe to narrate, you know, when you talk about hope, I've often written about something in the future, what I would like to be doing and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. It's not like I decided to start a foundation and all of this stuff and tell my story and that there would be I didn't know any of that would happen, but I remember wanting, to help people and to share my story in a way that might and I remember writing about certain things. I remember making a vision board about certain actors that I wanted to work with and all these things. And I had lost that for years, and I pulled it out, and, like, 3 or 4 of probably 10 or 12 people on that board, I had actually worked with. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what if I had planted a seed of 100 people?" You know?
Yeah.
It was like but those kind of things that I actually have taken the time to do have helped me personally, because I've had those ideations of suicide or ending it all or life isn't worth it or I tried so hard and it failed. And what am I doing? Who do I think I am? And then I go, is that the truth or is that the lie? Because I've
Exactly.
been taught to differentiate between truth and lies. And so you have to do that ongoingly. And by doing those things, somehow that glimmer of hope re-enters. It comes back. And it may never feel as good as somebody else that I have people in my life who have clinical depression and anxiety. And they may never feel, as good as maybe I feel because I don't have those complications in
Mhm.
my mental health. And that's okay too, that people don't have to have faults or whatever they call it now, toxic positivity or,
Yes.
that every day is joy. And that's all I see on social media. So my life, is a show because obviously everybody else has everything and I don't. No, that's everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody has it just the only things you see on there are the perfect, beautiful pictures of everybody's, latest, beautiful restaurant visit or vacation or their family picture. You don't see when they're at their darkest. So,
Exactly. So
any else,
mhm.
parting words of what we can do to do the work or to help somebody else that might be in that crisis mode. Just, you've already spoken about be direct, ask, are you having thoughts of suicide or thoughts of ending your life? There's a new commercial program, a new kind of public service announcement program that I've seen on TV, and it's been really good because you realize like somebody's struggling, they're having that period of maybe it's for an hour or maybe it's been a long time, maybe it's been coming on for months, and
Mhm.
they'll say, "Could I hold your guns? Could I hold your
Yeah.
prescriptions? Could I take them for you just while you're going through this difficult time?" And they say the real words.
Yes.
And that this whole thing, it's been really a great, program of, public awareness, public service announcements, basically, but very well done in a way that, most of us don't think of it that way. We
Yeah.
don't know what to do.
Yes. So, of course, be direct. I'm just going to reiterate some of the things. Be direct. Ask the hard questions and pause to listen for the hard answers. And if you get a tough answer, yes, I am thinking of suicide. As much as you can, as much as you can, hold that person's hand and walk them through that process to their resources. Because loving a person is not going to stop them from wanting to die by suicide. You can love them all day long. But as soon as you turn your back, if they've made a plan and they're resolute in their decision making, they're going to attempt anyway. But what we need at this point, if a person that says, yes, that's how I'm thinking right now, that's how I'm feeling, that's my desire, that's my plan, now you need an expert. And again, if that's 988, if that's 911, if that's 800-273-8255, if that's going on a website, whatever that is, if that's getting in the car, taking them by the hand, I love you. I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to walk you through this as far as I can go with you. I will be there when you get out. whatever it is, you make space for that person, okay? If that's being on the phone all night long, just because maybe they have said, no, I'm not thinking of dying by suicide. However, I am in a deep, dark depression. We'll stay on the phone with them. I'm a goofball. I will crack you up because I'm corny as crap, and I'll say something goofy and you're laughing, and then we can get to the real crux, the real root of what is causing this horrible depression. Be someone's safe space first, right? Then encourage them to see their power. I know that sounds like, what? This little fluffy stuff. One of the things, and I said this earlier, one of the things that really made me turn the corner was me realizing if I decide that I want to die, I can decide that I want to live.
Mhm.
It's like a light bulb moment. It sounds so, nothing and fluff and common. That's not anything big. That's not a revelation. Yes, it is. It was for me
Huge.
because I was hopeless. I thought I could never, I could never want to live. No, but Michelle, you made a decision though. So you can change your mind. You can change your mind. Now, when you can illuminate someone's power in their own lives and empower them, you can be better than this. You can do better. I will be there for you as much as I can, right? Because what I don't want to communicate is that you're someone's savior. We can barely save ourselves. Okay. So we really can't save anyone else, but we can make space for people to find the healing and the resources that they need. So you educate yourself on the signs of suicide and or that severe depression. Isolation is one of the big ones, right? We all know that. When you are accustomed to speaking with someone regularly and all of a sudden they just go MIA and it's like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, okay, something's wrong. You may have to go above and beyond. It may have to escalate beyond a phone call and an actual physical visit, right? Learn the signs. People giving away their belongings and all these things, the isolation, the alienation, and of course, people who are actually just talking about death a lot. Those are sure signs. But you can also go to AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and learn some more of the stats, learn some more of the signs, learn what to say, learn to listen. We need to learn to listen, really. I cannot hold that in enough. Learn to listen to others and make space for others. And then for the person like me who has attempted suicide, but you're still struggling, I'm not struggling with suicide ideation or any of that. But if you are still struggling, remember your why. What does that mean? Your why to live. Why did you decide to live one more day after that last attempt? Remember that and then start adding to it. Give yourself more reasons. Get some sunlight. Oh, it's amazing what the sun will do for you and to you. Take a walk, ride a bike, jump rope. Jan reference rope. Jump rope. Re engage with that childlike you. Find your joy again. Make a decision. You are capable of it. I'm not so special. Yes, I'm special. We're all special. But I'm not so special that I'm different and, well, God just gave me an extra dose of resilience. No, He didn't. I've had to do work. And this work has not always been easy. And it is unfair when you're dealing with depression for someone to come and dump some more work on you. But even if you can get out of the bed today, if you can take a shower today, that's an accomplishment. That's a win. And then when you do it, reward yourself, not with chocolate and food and greasy things and carbs. No, no, no. Acknowledge what you have accomplished. Man, Michelle, you got out the bed today. You're doing better than you were yesterday. Tomorrow's going to be even better. Oh man, what else can I do to advance beyond this depression? How else can I show up for myself? Do the work because it will require work. I'm sorry. I wish I had a quick fix. But also, if you need medication, if you have been prescribed medication and you've, had your second opinion, all that, if you need medication, take your medication. See a therapist. Get help. Some counseling, a support group if you have these other issues like child sexual abuse. Shameless plug, Thrivivors. THRIVIVORS.com. We are a community of survivors of sexual abuse who are learning to thrive. Get around some people who can understand your language, who understand your pain, that brain pain. And I don't mean to trauma bond. That is not what I'm referring to. Not at all. Thrivivors community is a community with experts and with peer-to-peer support group. And we have a POV from Jan monthly or bi-monthly. We have a book club. There are so many things that are training the individuals, teaching them, facilitating and leading them to a place of thriving. Because what we don't want to do is just survive. We are more than survivors. We are conquerors. We are overcomers. We are thrivers. So find a different community. And if you're not dealing with sexual abuse, okay, find a community of people who have fought the battle of suicide and depression and they won. Find those people, reach out to them. Hey, can you give me a tip? Hey, I'm going through this. Help, please. You are worth it. You are important. Your life matters. We need you here. And more than anything, we want you to produce here too. We want you to be productive. You deserve that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that even though you have to do the work for yourself, when you realize you're not alone in the experiences that you're having, that seems to make a huge difference for all of us, no matter what, our mental health and the condition of it at any given time.
Mhm.
If you can find that kind of support, it really does make a huge difference. Just not being alone, that isolation thing and being lonely and alone in anything, it just feels like it's the weight of the world. It
Yeah.
just put me in the basement of my house at one point, which is has no windows. It is a storage basement
Mhm.
with a bottle of pills at one time in my life. I was down there thinking, I can't handle the weight of the world.
Wow.
I don't know anybody in this situation. I don't know what to do, and I don't think I can do it. I don't think I'm good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, or strong enough. And luckily, I had a friend that had a similar situation in her family dynamic and life and understood how difficult, being a parent or a step parent in particular at that point can be. And and she kind of saved me,
Mhm.
because, you know, I wasn't sure I was gonna save myself, and like you said, she's not my savior. I had to do the work to never be hopefully to never be in that place again, which I have never had another experience like that, but it was enough that I was like, "Wow, this is real." You can get to a place like this that is so low that really you may not ever get up from the bottom you know, if you'd have happened to have brought a bottle of water downstairs and we're laying on the basement floor with this bottle of pills. You may not have, and I had never experienced anything like that before, but it gave me a lot of empathy and it gave me another thing in my toolbox to know
Mhm.
that no matter how, you know, a lot of people perceive that my life is, whatever
Yeah.
because that's what they perceive. And I'm like, if you knew my loneliest moments, you know, we've all had them.
Yes. And that is key. That is key. That we understand we're not alone. And we started out talking about how prevalent this is, how common it is. If we can keep talking, keep the conversations going, make space for people. First, before I even say anything else, I have to acknowledge what you just said. I am so thankful that you are still here. I'm so thankful that you had the people resource, that friend of yours that came and pulled you out of that darkness. She couldn't keep you out, but she could pull you out, right? And that is our purpose as I think humanity. We can't be the saviors, but we can be a navigator. I can navigate you to some resources, to some healing, to some love, to some joy. I can point you in the direction and then sometimes grab your arm and walk you through it with you if I have that capacity. But many of us are going through so much of our own stuff that we really don't have that capacity. And I don't want to I don't want to dump on anyone else, right? So
Right.
do what you can at the level that you can. At the very least, you can listen.
Mhm.
At the very least, you can
Yeah.
give someone the 988 number. At the very least, you can direct them to AFSP. You do what you are able and capable of doing without putting yourself in
Yeah.
harm's way, because I will keep going
Little
back.
guiding light, a
Absolutely.
little guiding light for just one thing that
Yes.
just make all the difference between, "Oh, I didn't take those. I'm here.
Yes.
Tomorrow did feel brighter, better." You know, I am stronger. I am hopeful. I will do the work, you know? And I love how this conversation about listening went, because I do see that as one of the hardest things to really be for someone else, or to have someone else be there for you in that way. That listening thing is such a gift that we can give to someone else and that we often need from someone else. And I've had lots of those. I've had many, many gifts of people listening and caring and just not trying to fix it, but just trying to let those feelings, those emotions, those desperate moments play out without it ending my life, or some other member of my family's life, or my extended family's life. I am so grateful that, you know, the people that I know that struggle,
Mhm.
that have been in my life, are still here.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
thank you for this amazing, amazing conversation, Michelle. You're truly, you're just a brilliant and so capable because of your lived experience in order to share from the heart and from your wealth of experience in what you've been able to do in these last 21 years to be in the place that you are. And I just want to acknowledge you too, and for the wonderful gift that you are as a listener in our community, and as somebody who helps many, many people, who is there for them. And I know that that is not always easy, you know? It is it's remarkable. So thank you for every bit of this conversation, and for every bit and every ounce of who you are. I really appreciate you being here today. Is there anything left that you wanted to say that you didn't get in? If
Yes.
there is, now's the time. Great.
So, for the listeners and for you, Jan, well, first I'll start with you. For you, Jan, thank you. I'm thankful that you're still here. You're still in the fight. You're still doing the work. There's more work to be done. But I also want you to acknowledge your progress, acknowledge your growth, acknowledge the fact that you have so many people around you loving you and rooting for you. I thank you for your heart, for that community, for Thrivivors community, for the Jan Broberg Foundation. I thank you for having the vision and the insight to go beyond your pain, to address and administer help, or the guiding light, as you so eloquently put it, for others in pain. That is remarkable. I think it is so remarkable when we've experienced devastation and trauma and disgust in every aspect of our life or dysfunction, and to come out and help navigate and lead and guide someone else to their healing process. That is empathy on another level. So I appreciate you for that. For those of you out
Thank
there who
you.
are listening, who, you're at your wits' end, you don't feel like you're seen, you're heard, you're believed, you're loved. If you are a survivor of child sexual abuse, take a chance on you. Go to www.thrivivors.com. I'll answer. I'll make space for you. I'll see you. I'll hear you. I'll believe you. And then you can come into the community filled with others who will see, believe, hear, and validate you. And if you are having thoughts of suicide, there's nothing wrong with you. You just need a reset, and you might need some different resources. You might need some support, and that's okay. But you are worthy. You are valuable. You are needed. You are loved. even if you don't feel that way, reach out to 988 or 800-273-8255 or 911. If it's dire, your life matters. Save your own life because we need you. Don't believe the lies that your brain, your mind is telling you. It's a lie. You matter. We love you. And I can't wait to see you on the other side of healing. That's all I have, Jan. I appreciate you. Thank you for your platform. Thank you for your heart. This is a heavy topic, but it's necessary. Let's keep the communication lines open, people. Please give people space.
Absolutely. We want to save lives and we want lives to have that hope that that is possible. And I really appreciate this entire conversation. Thank you, Michelle. And like Michelle said, I'll see you all on the other side of trauma and on the other side of healing and on the other side, I hope, in this life.
Yes.
But I'll see you on either side for sure.